Welcome to the finale of bullying at last. Point number 17, and that is really the practical summary. As much as we've tried to show the severity that the Torah's position is on bullying, both for the bully and the protection of those who are vulnerable as nirdafim, people who are easily intimidated, be they an almana or a yesoma, a widow, a child who is an orphan, Rahman al-Islam. These are people that the Torah singles out, even though they're not the only examples, but they are examples of people who are vulnerable and therefore much more susceptible to being bullied or intimidated. So even though the subject of bullying could be really overwhelming and we can really think, oh my gosh, this is really complicated, the real thrust of the entire presentation has been to acknowledge really the following, and this is the starting point in the practical, and that is we really need to answer the question: can bullying damage you for life? Simple question. Can bullying scar you, traumatize you, damage you for life? Yes or no? And we want the children to be able to answer that in a very definitive way, absolutely certain. So one offering might be to take a piece of paper, and now we're right into the practical, where you ask the children, take this clean piece of paper, completely clean, and scrunch it up into your fist. Okay, now open it up, if you can, and look at the piece of paper and ask yourself, okay, this has got all these creases. If you try to flatten it out, will you be able to iron it out, flatten it out in a way that the creases won't show? Or even though this is useful, you could still write on it, but it's got creases all over, so it's scarred for life, right? Well, yes, you could say that, but here's the question. Are you a piece of paper? Is a human being a piece of paper? Are you scarred for life if someone has trodden on you, scrambled you up, and bashed you, and punched you, and kicked you, and shouted at you, beat you up? Are you like a piece of paper? Or, as we want the children to come to the conclusion, human beings only live when? One moment at a time, one thought at a time. And therefore, for me to be scrumpled up in this moment, I have to take the memory of being kicked and bashed up into the now. So this is a very simple metaphor to start off the conversation in answer to the question, so if someone is bullied, does that mean they're scarred for life, yes or no? And you want the kids to discuss that. And you'll get some kids who will say yes, and some will say no, and some will say both. It depends. But what you're building up now is you're starting a conversation so that children start to think in terms of, if I'm hurt, am I scarred for life? And as you move into the idea that human beings only exist in the moment, children get this very quickly. You only live now. You don't live yesterday, you don't live tomorrow. Tomorrow doesn't exist, it's the future. It doesn't exist. Yesterday doesn't exist, it's already dead, it's past, it's gone, it's finished. History. The only moment you ever live in is the moment. It's not complicated for them to understand that. And if I've got suffering in the past, the only way I can relive that is by thinking it now. But if that doesn't serve me, why would I think it? Why would I keep remembering what people have done? Because it only makes me feel crumpled up and scarred. So that's number one of this. You want the children to get into a discussion and let them come to their own conclusions, because you're going to be leading them with all the other metaphors that we've covered into a realization of reality. It's not even an opinion anymore. It's not an opinion. You can't change the fact that your mind is you. You can't, this is just reality. Your body's not you, your mind is you. You can't change the fact that you only exist one moment at a time. And you can't change the fact that you only experience that moment in your thought. And you only live one thought at a time. So that's indisputable, but you want the kids to come to that themselves. Number two of this is that once they realize, one second, if I can't be damaged for life by bullying, why? Because I've got this inner resilience. The inner resilience is a Kadosh Baruch Hu inside of me. We're going to get now to the main mashalim, and the first one, which we've covered twice already, once in the actual presentation, another one in the summary, which we just gave, is the creepy crawly, whether it's a plastic spider or a plastic beetle that you would bring into the classroom. If you want to surprise the kids, you could, but you might have some faint-hearted girls in the classroom where you don't want them to freak out and have heart attack, chas v'shalom, or lose a heartbeat, or like faint from fear. So you might want to tell them up front that this is a fake beetle. It's a fake spider. It's not real. But I'm going to pretend as though it's real for a moment, and I put it on my shoulder. I'm talking to you innocently, and in the corner of my eye, I sense movement. And I go, ah! And in that moment, now you go over with the children the simple question, what made me fear the spider or the beetle? And the answer is, I thought it was real. Only when I see it fall on the floor and it's plastic, it's only plastic. So scenario number one. Scenario number two is, it's the same, oh, my brother's playing that prank again. And then you freak out when you see it run away, and you realize, oh, it's real. So what made me freak out? Oh, because I thought it was real. What made me not freak out when I just went, oh, it's my brother? Because I thought it was fake. Oh, so what actually makes me have fear or not? Whether the spider or beetle is real or not, or what I'm thinking. See, what I'm thinking is my reality. It's what I'm thinking about that's my reality. It's not what that outside is or isn't. Is what I think about it that is real. So if I'm embarrassed by someone making a funny comment about me, then that's what I'm telling myself, and I'm embarrassed by it. If I'm not embarrassed, either because I'm thick-blooded or I just actually find it funny, and it doesn't affect me because I'm a $100 bill, a Rolls Royce, and it doesn't change the reality, and therefore it doesn't even scratch me, so I'm not affected. Ka'afa, la koldia, you're just dust or soil that gets stronger when it's trampled on, or just nurtures because it's being nurtured, produces beautiful flowers and trees and fruit-giving plants. Oh, so I get to choose who I'm going to be in that next moment. So metaphor number one, we said, is crunching the paper. Are you a piece of paper that's scarred for life, or are you a human being who can self-heal? Because your healing takes place moment by moment, thought by thought. Just like every other part of the entire Bria, every other part of the universe, it has in it innate health, self-healing already prescribed in the Bria. And that goes for every single element, whether it's a seed that's planted into the ground, has in it all the intelligence, divine intelligence, to know what to do. It will absorb water in the nutrition of the rainfall from the topsoil and sprout roots deep into the ground, while it also makes a movement upwards and becomes a plant. And as the leaves grow from this seed, the leaves will absorb both the oxygen and the sunlight and the water from the ground through the stem, the trunk of the tree, into the leaves. And now the leaves do its innate intelligence that was already inside the seed, called photosynthesis, where it feeds off itself, grows through sunlight, oxygen and water, and in doing so can actually produce fruit. And all that's from a seed. The seed knows what to do. A tree could have a branch torn off it, but it knows what to do to continue surviving. And you'll see how the Bria compensates and heals itself. The body is exactly the same. Chas v'shalom, you get a cut or a wound or even a broken bone, Rahman al-Islam. If there's no medical care, your body will still do what? Wait until someone comes, or the second that there's an entry of a germ or invasion of germs because now there's an abrasion or an actual cut, your blood knows exactly what to do because it's divinely, intelligently designed to know how to self-heal. And if the entire Bria was not for planet Earth or for the trees or for your physical body, but was all for your bechira, what are you going to choose to think? Then do you think that just because Hashem made every part of the Bria able to self-heal, but didn't do that for the most valuable element in creation, your mind? Your mind knows how to self-heal. Your mind knows the truth. And the truth is, you only ever exist from thought to thought. So no matter how bad the bullying and intimidation, no matter how much you've been crushed and your mind knows the truth, that you only exist one thought at a time, and you can let go of those thoughts that hurt, because that's history. That is very powerful for a child to recognize that you already have that inside of you. We're going to get to the Rolls Royce, you already have the resilience to stand up to and be a pin, a skittle in bowling, where you don't fall down because you know the inside of you is not hurt. And you, therefore, the real power is internal, not external. And so when the bully starts up with you, he sees, hey, you're not affected. Well, I'm glad you think it's funny, but quite frankly, that's your opinion, it's not mine. It's not my opinion of me, it's your opinion of me. And I'm not even sure if it's really your opinion of me, but you're entitled to say what you want. You're not really meant to do Oinus Dvarim, or Moses Shemra, or Lashon Hara, or Rechilus. That is a problem, and it's more of a problem to what you do to your own character. But no, that's not my opinion. I mean, I don't think I'm a nerd. No, I don't think I'm stupid. But if you listen, cool, you think that, but it's not what I think. So just talking to the bully in a way that shows that he has no power over you is where he will go to the next bowling alley and leave you alone. Or get him to think about how stupid he is in trying to have this external power, which is not real, because it's never real. So in Mashal number 2, the dollar bill is there for the children to talk about, just like the scrumpled paper. You want the kids to talk about the intrinsic value of the dollar bill, so they start speaking about what's the true value inside of me. And that's where you'll have the discussion about, Hashem is inside of you all the time, and He's giving you the power of thought, and you have the ability to think the next thought and not buy into what other people are saying about you, that you're ugly, you've got no friends, that you're overweight, or that you're stupid, or you're dumb, or unintelligent, not as smart as the rest of the class, or you're not athletic, and you're not as fast as, and you always let the ball in, or whatever it is that they're bullying. You've got your own frame of reference, and even if it appears to be true in the moment, next moment doesn't have to be true, because I don't have to live that pain each moment to thought. So this is where you're helping children using these very simple metaphors. The number 3 metaphor is the bowling pin activity. Get the kids to talk about that. And you can use this also as a springboard for discussion about Avram Avinu. He was the father of Judaism, monotheism, the belief in one power that powers everything else. And ask them, did he have resilience? Did he have inner strength to stand up to? How many nisyonos did he go through? He went through 10 tests. If you want, learn with the kids if it's appropriate and they've got the maturity. Go through the 10 different tests. It's all described there in Perek, Hey, Mishnah Gimel of Pirkei Avos, and you can look at the Rambam. He's got his listing, and Rav Bartunah has a slightly different one. Rabbeinu Yonah has a slightly different order and a couple different changes and which ones they actually were. But nevertheless, go through the tests with the children and talk about what resilience did Avram Avinu have to be willing to be thrown into a furnace and lose his life. Wow, he must have really believed in what he believed. He was able to leave his father's home, his birthplace, his entire land that he was familiar with, and go to a land that he wasn't even sure where he was going. He was just going to be told, I'll show you where to go once you leave. But he had to leave and let go of everything that he was used to. Not easy. He arrives where he's told to go, Eretz Canaan, and it's a famine. Now, is that something you might start thinking, I just don't get, why are you doing this to me? You tell me to leave my homeland, my father's house, my birthplace. I arrive in this land, there's a total famine, there's no way to live here. And he starts shechting all his animals in order to provide meat and food for all his servants and guests until it all runs out. And then he starts selling off his assets, all his jewelry, until that runs out, and now he can't do Achnasas Orchim anymore. He's spent all his entire wealth, and he starts borrowing money to be able to continue doing Achnasas Orchim. That's incredible. But finally, it just gets too hard. He goes down to Egypt where there's no famine, and his wife is kidnapped. Oh my gosh, she's taken in to Parai. What chance do you have to survive now? And Avraham Avinu goes through all this, and what type of internal resilience do you have that you got emunah, that Hashem really is real, and that you're on God's side? You have to be really strong. No wonder he went through 10 tests. V'amad bekulam. He stood up to all of them, and that DNA of Avraham Avinu is injected in us. We are Jews because of Avraham Avinu. Sarimenu, the Aves, Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. These are towering personalities, and you can intersperse between the metaphors, especially after this particular metaphor of the bowling pin, the skittle and the bowl, talk about personalities in Tanakh that children are already familiar with, but bring out their resilience. Rivka Imenu, at a young age, telling her family, her father was Besuel, who was a Rasha, and Lavan was a Rasha. Anshe Mekayma were Rashoyim, V'lo lamda mima'aseyim. She chose not to learn from their ways. And when asked, do you want to go with this kind of stranger, or stay with us in your home they're familiar with? And she said, Eilech, I'm going. I will go. That's it. She was determined. It was clear. She had absolute clarity. She had internal resilience to stand up to parents, or at least a father and brother, who were Rishoyim, wicked people, and choose to live a life of righteousness. Oh, that takes resilience. And that's part of your DNA. And you keep bringing up different people. Moshe Rabbeinu, not a bystander who just stands by and watches. No, he jumps in at all levels, whether it's Bein Adam L'Chaveroi, or whether it's a Jew against a Jew, or a non-Jew against a Jew, or whether it's even non-Jews against non-Jews. He stands up for justice, and he stops these shepherds who are traumatizing these young daughters of Yisrael. Moshe Rabbeinu stood up to them, and these are non-Jews against non-Jews. Wasn't silent. Bring out to the children what it means in the Torah to be strong inside. Look at Goliath. My friend Benny Marvin was bringing out, Goliath is a great example of a bully. Oh my gosh, what a bully. He was bullying the Jewish people every single day, screaming at them and cursing Hashem, Rahman al-Islam, threatening that send me your best soldier, and whoever wins, me or him, then that the winner will control the rest of the enemy. And of course his expectation, standing 6 amos and 1 zeret, which comes to approximately 13 feet tall. I mean, that is tall. I mean, that's like 5 feet taller than Shaquille O'Neal. I mean, that's tall. He was 7'2". But 13 feet tall. Oh my gosh, that is really high. Now that's pretty intimidating. You stand up there, hi, Goliath, hi. You're frozen. And David HaMelech, not yet Melech, David stands up to him. He's 29 at the time, but he stands up to him. And where's that inner resilience come from? Oh, because he knew that I'm telling him, Hashem's on my side, not on yours. You're an Aral. You speak Nivel Peh, and you're Megadef Rahman al-Islam. You curse the Jewish people and a Kadosh Baruch Hu, Rahman al-Islam. You're one big Chil Hashem, and I'm going to remove that. And that's exactly what he took off that man's head. Oh, so bring out for the children, we've got so many personalities in Tanakh that they're familiar with, where you can just impose the bully formula. You got a bully, you got a target, you got bystanders. And talk about the inner resilience that we've had to be able to withstand the worst scenarios. Yosef Tzaddik, 10, then 2 more years in jail, 12 total, long time to think about how he got there. Yosef Tzaddik, instead of accusing his brothers, not only has he not nurtured resentment and anger and bitterness and the desire to take revenge, he turned that all around, and he says, don't you see that you thought to hurt me? Chashavtem alai ra'a, you had ill intent against me. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Elokim, chashav l'tova, he was turning all around. He had a different way of looking at everything, and he actually got me down to Egypt to become Potiphar's head of his estate, and then falsely accused, thrown in jail, and all in preparation for, today I'm Mishnah Lamelech. I'm second in command of the whole of the Egyptian empire. In preparation for you to come down to Egypt, and therefore, Lo atem shalachti moisi hena, it wasn't you who sent me here, ela Elokim. Wow, what resilience. His mind could have been rotting away for 10, 12 years in jail. That's a long time to think about how I got here and build up the resentment. Yeah, it's my brothers. If I'll ever get out of here. They took the best years of my life from 18 to 29. I can't believe I'm just 18 to 30 years old. Do you know what? Those are my prime years. And I'm still rotting in jail if I ever get out of here. First agenda, get back at them. And do you know what? It's amazing. He was Ahmed bin Asayan because he didn't think about resentment, anger, frustration, nakama, revenge. He didn't think about it. And if there was a pop-up, press delete, moved on, ignored it, got on with his life. Help the kids to see that's always been the Tzad HaShava. It's the equalizer for every human being, but especially Klal Yisrael, who've got injected in us this inner resilience. Every major personality, you can see it's the same equation. Bring this out about Rivka Imenu, Sarah Imenu, Kulan Shavin Mateva. Her whole life was equally good. And yet she was barren, 90 years, kidnapped twice, took on her co-wife. She went through the same, almost all, 10 this year, and it's almost, not all, but almost all the 10 tests of Avram Avinu. Where do you get that resilience? And the answer always is, what are you thinking? She lived outside in or inside out? Kulan Shavin Mateva, she was thinking about what she went through, Lateva. She wasn't bringing old storage of memories into her mind. Oh, I'm still barren, I'm still barren, I'm still barren. Every month I'm still barren. I've been kidnapped not once but twice. This being from business is really hard. Well, that's a thought. And if I explore it instead of ignore it, I can drive myself nuts. And Has v'Shalom, leave the Machane, Has v'Shalom. But guess what? That's a thought. And the way to be Ahmed bin Nasayan is to not think about the Nasayan. I'm guessing that you as a Rebbe never think, ever, each morning, shall I put on tefillin today? Shall I daven? Why don't you think that? It's not an sign for you. Why isn't it an sign? Because you don't think it. You don't think about not keeping kosher because you don't think about it. That's why it's not an sign. See, an sign can only be an sign if you're thinking about the other possibility. Shall I slaughter my son as HaKadosh Baruch Hu asked me to? My favorite son, my only son, my Ben Yachid from my loyal wife, Sarah Imenu, shall I slaughter him? Or remember, I can't believe I got 3 days to think about this. And the answer is, he was Ahmed bin Nasayan. Says Rashi in Perek Hey Mishnah Gimel, Shalai Hiher Achrei Midosav Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He just didn't think about it. Didn't second guess Hashem. Just put on tefillin. What sits it? Didn't make a ganze struggle out of it. The struggle is only if I'm thinking about it. That's the struggle. Shall I not? Why? Why is he doing this to me? I just don't get it. So use the metaphors to have discussion about great personalities. If you've got any kids in the classroom who's got a grandparent or great-grandparent who was a Holocaust survivor, and it's appropriate for the age and maturity of the children, ask them if they know if Holocaust survivors typically talked about the horrors that they experienced and the resentment and anger they had towards the Nazis, or did they typically, almost literally 99% of the time, literally or more, never talk about it? Why didn't they? What were they busy doing after the Holocaust? Starting their lives again. Rebuilding the Jewish people, getting married, having children, earning a living, building their lives, communities. Shalohiher. They weren't thinking about how do you recover from the trauma of the Holocaust? You were in camps for 5-6 years? Years? In concentration camps? How do you recover from that? I mean, you must need decades of therapy for that. And the Holocaust survivor will look at you and say, no, actually, the way we survived is by not thinking about it. Didn't talk about it. Many decades later, when they're elderly and children are all married off and they got more time for themselves, they may end up talking more about it. But guess what? That's not how they functioned. For all those years that they built their family and their career and the Jewish communities and yeshivas around the world, because they were busy, focused on press delete, ignore. I'm exiting this pop-up. It's a thought. I don't have to live with the suffering of my memories. And if I do, I've got to be out of my mind. That's not going to heal me. What's going to heal me is not thinking about it, not talking about it, moving on. And help the children realize this is part of your DNA. That's how you, yes you, in your DNA, survived the Egyptians, the Babylonians, the Persians, Haman, the Greeks, the Romans, the Crusades, the Inquisitions, the Cossacks, Tachvatat, Tsarist Russia, Communist Russia, the Holocaust, Third Reich, Jihad. You survived and beat them all. How do you do that? By crying out, "You victimized me! Payback! I want reparations! You ruined my life! You ruined it! You killed my family!" Or they just got on with life and rebuilt. Oh, that's the power that you've got inside of you. Help children realize this resilience is not something new. It's always there. It's always there, all the time. The fault, the mistake I will make is thinking that I'm a victim and you're bullying me. I have to think that to believe it. But if I don't believe it because I don't think it, you, the bully, lose power over me because I'm in control of me, and you will eventually go elsewhere where you see I have no power with this guy, and the whole purpose of me bullying the guy is that I've got more power than him and it's not working with him, so I'll go somewhere else. Oh, this is the power of these metaphors. So going on to mashal number 4, and that is the Rolls-Royce mashal. And use that Rolls-Royce mashal with the 67 Chevy, and you talk about the Rolls-Royce being scratched up and beaten, and everyone calling it a 67 Chevy, and eventually it's taken for scrap and sold into the scrapyard, and the boss of the scrapyard looks at this car and says, "It's not a 67 Chevy," and he opens up the bonnet and says, "This is a Rolls-Royce." And you inside say, "Really? I'm a Rolls-Royce? I was just about to commit suicide, just about to be thrown in the furnace and crushed for whatever metal value I might still have as scrap metal, but you're telling me I'm a Rolls-Royce?" So now, that revelation tells you, Lemafreya, I was always a Rolls-Royce. I was never a 67 Chevy. The moment the children understand, I have always been a Jew. I'm a Rolls-Royce of a person. I've got Tselem Elokim. I've got a neshama. Asher bacha banu mikol ha'amim. I'm not talking about being superior. We're talking about being better off. A 67 Chevy will still take you from A to B, and Rolls-Royce will as well. Maybe a little bit more comfort if you're not bashed up too much. But hey, inside I'm a Rolls-Royce. No matter how much you scratch me, don't you dare think about scratching me, because you know I'm a Rolls-Royce. And even if you do scratch me, it doesn't make me not a Rolls-Royce. I'm a scratch, but I'm a Rolls-Royce. A Jew is a Jew is a Jew. And therefore we want the kids to understand, look at the timeline and see how you have not just survived, but thrived. In every single host nation that has attempted to persecute, expel, and harm you, you not only enriched that nation before they expelled you or turned against you, but you continued after you were crushed, bullied into the ground. Ka'afa lakol tiyeh. But I'm going to be like Afa to everybody. If you do crush me, I'll be stronger, because that's what happens when you crush soil. And if you don't crush me, I will contribute to you. Like soil will contribute. And that's what we've done, because that's who we are. We're givers. That's what we are all about, chesed. Chesed, Olam Chesed Yibaneh. That's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the universe for. And he chose us to be major contributors. The highest level of tzedakah in the world is Jews. The highest contribution in all areas of righteousness. We've provided millions of role models. Look at the timeline. Show the kids. We have provided millions of role models of tzaddikim and tzidkanias throughout the ages who've lived and died for HaKadosh Baruch Hu and His Torah and His mitzvahs. We've been bullied by all the nations, but guess what? We're so resilient. We stood up to it, and we're still here. Eretz Yisrael is providing the highest levels of technology to the world. We've got the highest rate of Nobel Prizes than any other people in world history who are contributing to their host nation and the better world that we're creating through science, technology, medicine. The Jews are at the forefront in every movement. The most important one, of course, is righteousness, the living Hashem's Torah. But even outside of that, in Derech Eretz and in the world of finances and medicine, we've got the highest rate of contribution. 50+% of Nobel Prize winners in medicine, in finances, in technology, in science are all Jews. That's incredible. Over 50%, and yet we are 1% of the world population. You've got that in you. Help the children to understand what my pride is based upon, reality. And that is a thought of who I am. Am I 67 Chevy, beat up, good for scrap metal, or am I a Rolls Royce and always have been? I was born a Rolls Royce. So that's metaphor number 4. And metaphor number 5 is what I call the overweight thinking metaphor. I think I touched on this. I don't even remember now. We covered so much. But the overweight thinking means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu would never give a Nisayon a test that's too much for me. It's impossible. Hashem will never over-test us. He will give us a test that will help us reveal us. That's what a test is for, to help reveal ourselves to ourselves. We've talked about this in other contexts where the Jewish people in Perek Aleph of Shemais are in slavery in Egypt, and the Medrash Rabbah tells us that the Jewish people are compared to the olive, because when you crush an olive, what comes out? Well, olive oil. Yeah, but what determines the quality of the oil? How hard you crush? How hard you press? Or what determines the quality of the oil is the ripeness of the olive. How mature is the olive? So if you crush me, what will come out? Whatever's inside. So if I'm immature, you'll get an immature response. If we are strong inside, you'll get a strong response. If we're happy inside and you crush us, happiness will still come out. Yeah, we've got survival instincts. We've got resilience built in. Every human being does. But the Jewish people are different in the sense that we've been through the mill many times over, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu has promised we're an eternal nation. And He chose us from all the other nations. And so we have got certain parts of our DNA of resilience that have withstood the test of time and persecution, execution and dispersion, scattered amongst all the nations, hated ad hayom till today, the most hated people in world history, and yet we're still strong. And that's because of the Tselem Elokim inside of us. That's Hashem, you give us that strength. So these are ways we can help the kids understand that. And now in our last mashal, when we talk about overweight thinking, Hashem will never give me a test that's more than I can handle. So why is it that I will think that I just can't, Rebbeinu Shalom, I can't take this anymore? So the simple mashal we'll do in the classroom is the following. Chazal give one of the names for this world, Olam HaNisayon, and Hashem's giving me a test. So let's just pretend this is my test. The Ramchal offers that this world is called Olam HaNisayon, and in another place he says, Kol inyanei ha'olam hem nisyonis l'adam. So even though this is one big nisayon, everything is nisyonis. So this might here be my shalom bias. This is a really difficult teenager that I'm dealing with right now. This is my mother-in-law. This is my father-in-law. This is my brother-in-law. This is my chavruta, who my learning partner drives me mad. This is my boss. You cannot believe. So here's my nisayon. But Hashem has measured it perfectly to fit what I can handle. He will not give me more than my muscles can take. So I'm walking around with my Nisayan every day, and okay, look, it is what it is. But you know what starts happening? I start noticing that, you know what? I'm noticing other people don't have it as hard as me. Like, I don't know why. Why is it that my neighbor has got such a better mind than me when it comes to learning? It's really annoying. I work so hard, and he comes straight away. In every Daf Yomi shir, he comes straight away, and I'm like completely struggling. You know what? I'm really feeling down on myself because I've been setting aside learning for many years, and I still feel like I'm Namaretz. I'm not really a Talmud Chacham, and I just really feel like a failure with this teenager is driving me crazy. I can't tell you how much he's really. I feel a complete failure with this kid, and I hate to say it, but my wife could be so much more supportive. And I start asking a different question. You know what? I'm finding life really not that easy, and I'm not getting. With all of that, my boss is so unappreciative. You have no idea. And I can't stop thinking how I do so much for him in this company, and yet he's so unappreciative. And I'm starting to feel that this is a sign that you gave me, Rebbeinu. It's just too much for me, and it's too much. It's really I wake up in the morning telling myself this is too much, and I don't know how much more I can take of it. I feel completely overwhelmed. I'm starting to feel anxiety that I never had before. I was never that type, and it's really can't get it. Really can't take it. More. The problem is not the Nisayan. The problem is my thinking. I'm overweight thinking. That's the problem. The Nisayan is perfectly measured. But where it really gets so hard, where I genuinely start believing, this is too much. I can't take it anymore. It's because of the overload on thinking. I think too much about it. And Chazal reveal, Avram Avinu nisnase be'asara nisyonos. He went through 10 trials. Va'amad b'kulam, because shelo hireh. He wasn't thinking. Rebbeinu Shalom, why are you doing this to me? If that thought popped up, delete, exit. If thought came up in his mind, why is my job so hard? So that's a thought which I could explore or ignore. And which do you think I should do? If I'm going to move forward, which do you think I should do? So I could pay a couple $100 an hour and explore it. Come back next week and let's pour some more water over the weeds. And next week, let's water it some more and some more and some more. You know what? Over the years, I could actually get overwhelmed by the weeds. And why are there so many weeds in the garden of my mind? Well, if I'm watering them all the time, guess what's going to grow? So if I'm going into a therapy, which is you look up the word in the dictionary, therapy really means healing. Comes from the word in Hebrew, therapeh. Therapy. Therapeh means heal. If I'm not healing myself, and you're not helping get healed, because all that's really happening is I'm just analyzing the pain, remembering the pain in more detail, and starting to uncover a whole new dimension that I didn't even look at before of how you wronged me. Oh, it's much worse than I thought. And now I am actually nurturing Natira. Natira is an Issa Deraisa to remember the faults of other people. Where what ends up happening is it just adds more to my perfectly measured Nisayan and makes it just overwhelming. Every time I remember everything that's not right in my life, and all the negative thoughts become my suffering until I just can't take it anymore. I don't want to be in this world anymore. I can't take it. Rebbeinu Shalom, why me? And it's a stupid question. Because it's not reality. This is not my Nisayan. This was my Nisayan. The overload is over here. And Avram Avinu's secret to be Omed, stand up and not fall, Shelo hireh acharav. He didn't think afterwards, didn't think about it. But what about all the pop-ups? Ignore or explore. He pressed ignore, delete, exit, get out of here. I'm not I'm not going to pay attention to you, because if I do, it's going to pull me down. And that's not reality. Hashem's only good all the time. So that's the last metaphor. We want the children to do for themselves and kind of overload themselves and get the impression that, every time I have a negative thought, just add another block. If you don't have blocks in the classroom, you can do it with anything. You can do it with books. I don't say you should do it with Sfarim, because Sfarim are not really meant for this metaphor, but take books out of the library, the English library, whatever, or if you've got other blocks, and just keep adding, not to make it overweight, just to experience what it is that, you're joking, I've got to carry this everywhere I go? You've got to be joking. This is a lot. Well, it doesn't have to be that much. It's only that much if I'm thinking, because I'm taking me wherever I go. And if I'm taking my heavy, overweight thinking with me, I'm going to suffer. And I'm going to come to all sorts of false conclusions. Why me? How come everyone else doesn't have what I'm going through? I see people they're smiling. What are they smiling about? They must be happy. Well, how come they're happy and I'm not? How come they're much more disciplined in their health? They're much more disciplined in exercise, more disciplined in learning and taking care of their children, and they just seem much more happy than me. And the more I compare and the more I put myself down, the more I become my own bully. And now I'm the near-deaf and the right-deaf. But worst, I'm the bystander. I'm listening to all this and letting it go instead of saying, hey, bully in me. You're bullying me, get out of here. And he deletes the thought, ignores the thought. And if it keeps popping up, keeps coming back, because I've been bullying myself for a long time. So there's a momentum for where this attitude has come from. There's a whole momentum of bullying in my mind that is going to keep popping up. And I've just got to know one thing to heal myself. It's a thought. And when it pops up, it's a thought. And then when it pops up again, it's a thought. I don't have to live in that thought. Because Behira claims I can change my mind. I can change the direction of my mind. Teshuvah means turn around. Go back to the real me. And that's an asoyan that's much more doable. When I get strong, Hashem might add on one more block, another one, but that's because I can handle it, not because I can't. But when I talk about it and think about it, and I add on more and more and more, till I'm so overwhelmed. I can't take it anymore. Emotional, why are you doing this to me? I'm just trying to be a good Jew, and all I find is I'm just overwhelmed by everything you're doing to me. Hashem's not doing anything to me. He's giving me free will to think what I want, and I'm letting the overweight burden of thinking pull me down, weigh me down. So these are the metaphors that you want to bring out over a span of a number of days or several weeks. Interspace each metaphor by a day or two or three or even a week in between, depending on the maturity of the children, so that you get the kids starting to talk with this type of language, that I am my thoughts, with the language of I have internal resilience. I am a neshama. I am a Rolls Royce. I'm intrinsically valuable, and no matter how much I get beaten up, it doesn't change the intrinsic value of who I truly am as a Jew, as a human being, as a Tselem Elokim, as a member of the Jewish people, as someone who can still contribute to the world. And very often, as you learn more stories about great personalities in Jewish life, the kids will start to recognize that even if a Jew had a very hard time, they're not excluded from contribution. They're not excluded from greatness. They're not excluded from becoming greater because of what they've been through. And that usually is the story. I'll just put this down a second. And that usually is the story, that those who've suffered the most contributed the most. And that's something that's really more than just comforting, it's reality. The more our muscles are flexed with the weights that we're carrying, the stronger our muscles will get. The more Nisayan we are able to carry, the stronger we get internally. The stronger we are internally, the more we can give to others. So, That's really the practical. You want to do this over a number of weeks until the children start to talk in this terminology, so that when there's a sichsuch, when there's conflict in the classroom, bullying or the like, you can have that as a conversation in the class about what's really going on, and have the children apologize to each other, have the children talk to each other, have the children recognize that I said an unkind word and apologize for it. That was Ones Dvarim. So we start catching Ones Dvarim real quick, Lashon Hara real quick, Motzi Shema real quick, bullying real quick, and stamp it out real fast, because we're all sensitized to what bullying is really all about. And it's all about imbalance of power, but that power is an internal job, it's not an external job. And imagine what it would be if our preschoolers and first graders and second graders got the resilient training of looking at themselves as I'm good and I'm okay and beyond. And so that if and when they are hurt, they have the ability to bounce back very quickly. So what type of adults are we preparing them for? On a scale of 0 to 10, 0 would be like the least and 10 is the most, in terms of their internal strength to be strong through whatever they will go through in marriage, in their career, in their spiritual quest for being the best they can in their midas, their bounce back when they feel they're really down on themselves. If we can really help our children recognize anxiety is a thought, depression starts with thinking negative until it's so frequent I can pull myself down. But it's really starting up here, nowhere else. And that gives the children incredible liberation. On a 0 to 10 scale, we know it's going to break the scale, to give their children the ability to say, I'm strong, I can handle this. And do it with maturity and the type of agility that says, when I fall, I'll bounce back up. I'm not going to stay down. I may be down, but I'm never out. I'm coming back. And in the schus of knowing that this is truly what HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given us, the DNA of Avram Avinu, the DNA of the Avos and the Imahos, the DNA of Moshe Rabbeinu, of Yosef HaTzadik, the DNA of David HaMelech, all of whom were exceptional role models of resilience, of inner strength, of living inside out. Sarah Imenu, looking at the world inside out and not being affected by the world outside in, like I'm crushed by all that I'm going through. That is an amazing schus to know that that's part of who we are. That's our history. It's in our DNA, literally, in not just the bloodstream, it's our makeup. It's the inner strength that we can call upon in the next thought. In the schus of knowing that, maybe we mizaycha as parents and teachers in the classroom to exude that for ourselves and for our students and help build them from inside out so that they have that confidence which is real and not artificial, based on reality. I can control my mind, one thought at a time. In that schus, maybe we'll be zeicha to have much nachas from all our children till the coming of Mashiach. Amen.